Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you, Taylor?
I'm good. Just getting logged into GitHub here. Ah, good deal.
Yeah, fantastic. Good to see you. Thank you, everybody, as always, for joining OSS Thursdays. As you saw announced on Twitter, this will be our last show of the year, as we'll be taking a short break until we come back early in 2022. Um, yeah, how are things on your end, Taylor?
Yeah, they're going really well. So, Distributed USA took over from Team Rubicon at Fort Pickett on the 19th of November officially.
Wow.
And since then, we have been handling kind of cross-based needs assessments and donation management for all the aid that people are sending to base. Working with Samaritan's Purse, who kind of run the central shipping and receiving warehouse, and other orgs and government departments who help with distribution or run engagements. So the really exciting news is that our Giving Tuesday campaign
Yeah.
last week, yeah, we raised over $15,000,
Wow.
which is absolutely incredible. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to that, and especially to CodeC for giving us a boost on social media. So we've already been able to deploy the first $1,000 of that funding. I have two Verizon Wi-Fi hotspots here with me, 150 gigabytes, kind of pay as you go. So we'll be getting those to the new job prep center and the women's
Wonderful.
center that are being set up on camp, as well as some printers for the job prep center. We bought a bunch of snacks for the departure kits that we make for Samaritan's Purse, so that every kid gets a little backpack with stuffed animals and snacks and a coloring book, for their journey to their new home when they leave base. So
Wow.
really, yeah, it's great to have the funding and then just be able to respond, to those immediate needs that pop up rather than having to wait for a donation to come in from outside of base.
Taylor, that's wonderful, and I just want to say to everybody who pitched in, thank you, thank you. This is how
Absolutely.
these it's people's kind taking of the time and taking the being so people's generosity that makes these things possible.
100%. And if you want to continue to support our mission at Fort Pickett, we're still accepting financial donations at our Open Collective Fort Pickett project. And
Is that
then I can send you the link real quick. One sec.
Thank you. That's not the usual open collective link, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The usual one will still work actually. And then we have a project specifically set up for Fort Pickett. So just put the link in the chat.
Thank
So it's
you.
kind of interesting. The December 15th will be the last day that we accept general donations. And we're starting to implement a demobilization plan. So
You know what I'm gonna do, Taylor? Sorry to interrupt you.
go for it.
I'm just gonna bring this up on the screen share so folks can take a look. Sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, so basically, we're preparing for demobilization. Obviously, there's still a few months left to support the 5,000 Afghan guests we have on base, but it looks like everyone will be resettled into their new homes in short order here, which means that we don't necessarily need tons of generally collected aid anymore coming to base. We'll
Yeah.
be making very targeted requests to fill gaps in the current stock of items we have, and then using these sorts of financial donations, which are a lot quicker and more flexible because we can literally just, you know, for example, drive to the nearest T-Mobile store and
Yeah.
buy what's needed and get it back to base and make sure it's good to go. So
That's
certainly
wonderful.
the Giving Tuesday funding is very helpful in that regard. Yeah, just some fun facts. So this is a great example of what we do. We jump into the chaos, right, and
Yeah.
use our supply chain expertise in these sorts of environments to help settle it down. then we start building, we start doing domain modeling with Google Sheets. Everyone's like, what's the app to replace the spreadsheet? But you got to have the spreadsheet first, right?
Yeah.
So we currently have, this might be interesting. I think it should be fine for me to share some of this.
Oh yeah,
With
sure.
you all.
Do you want to share
Yeah,
your screen?
yeah. Give me a minute just to pull up the right
Take your time.
folder here. But I want to kind of show people the process we go through, kind of transitioning from that very direct on the ground dealing with the chaos part of the response to a much more structured response, and then eventually generalizing from that using technology to apply the insights and the tools that we've built across the board in other responses. So let me just share the screen. Here we go. Cool. And
Cool.
can you all see this Google Drive folder?
Yes, I can see it.
Awesome. So I'm not going to pull up the details. We have different reporting spreadsheets here, like the different distribution centers, or like the clothing or hygiene. And so every week on Fridays, I get a data dump with two numbers for every item that's in a warehouse or in a distribution center on base. That includes the current stock levels and then the weekly distribution rate. And so what that tells me is how much do we have, and then how much did we hand out to our guests in the past week. We can use that along with demographic information to project the needs of our guests. And that's the bit that I want to show you here. So this should provide, and by the way, is it big enough? I can zoom in. Ramon, let me know.
Could you maybe bump it just one level, I'd say? Folks in the chat, if it's still too small, please let us know. This
Is
looks
that good?
Thank you.
Awesome. So for Fort Pickett, we currently have 5,000 guests. To give everyone a sense of the complexity we're dealing with, there are 3 main warehouses and 4 main distribution sites, along with over 20 different engagement or activity sites that we support through the supply chain. And when I say we, it's the orgs collectively working together there.
Gotcha.
We have 9 categories of items, so everything from activities to baby items, cleaning supplies, clothing, you name it. We even have some food, some household items, hygiene,
Wow.
and there's 376 different types of items, 16 different age or gender descriptions. Like here we have adult diapers or children's spoons, kind of child size, different utensils and things like that. And there's 105 different size, style, or contents. So a good one that I like to do there, going back to the baby formula. Where's that at? Oh, that's cleaning. There we go. So for baby formula, we have 6 different types. There's lactose free, there's liquid, there's regular, and that really lets us meet the targeted needs of our guests. And we want to be able to have these insights down to that level so that, for example, we might have plenty of regular baby formula, but we don't want to run out of lactose free baby formula if that's a need for some of the children on base.
Wow.
So all this information gets compiled into our stock counts. And you can see here, we're tracking almost 1.3 million items that are on this base. And we have insights on where they are in the supply chain. So the different distribution sites, the different warehouses, things like that. We can also look at the current distribution rate. So again, looking at every item, like crayons, how many crayons are we going through? So that's handled through the USCCB kind of activities and engagements warehouse. We call it the North Pole. And we gave out just under 2,000 crayons last week to support different engagements and activities. We roll this in, so we now have a solid 3 to 5 weeks of data for every warehouse and distribution site. And so we roll it in and do kind of a moving average. I'm not quite sure what the technical term is, but we'll basically a weighted average, right? So we'll take last
Right.
week's distribution rate, but then include some data, from the previous 2 to 4 weeks, right? Just to help smooth out that curve. And that way, if there's a hiccup one week, it's not necessarily going to throw off our predicted distribution rate too much. It should all kind of average out over time. And we expect these distribution rates to drop as guests continue to get resettled. So this lets us really, safely start to do that supply chain planning. Like you noticed with crayons, we only gave out 2,000 last week, but the predicted distribution rate is 3,000. And so that means that the weeks before we were giving out more crayons, and that's something that makes sense. If we give out a whole bunch of crayons and there's some left over at the end of the week, people use those before requesting more. So maybe over Thanksgiving, we gave out 4,000 crayons, and then last week we gave out 2,000, kind of averages out to a predicted distribution rate of 3,000 a week.
Wow. This is
Yeah,
really detailed. Thank you for sharing this, Taylor.
absolutely. So I love it because I can just go look up whenever someone has a question like, what's going on? Are we
Yeah.
distributing this stuff? Where the supplies at? I just go straight to the data, right? Being a technologist.
I also really appreciate the transparency of it. And I think this is kind of goes into what Distribute is all about, isn't it? It's sort of like that enablement and
Hmm.
and empowerment of other organizations to be able to get an idea of what to expect.
Absolutely. And so we share this openly with all the orgs and government departments working on base. And then ideally would like to get to a point, if we can integrate this with the kind of grassroots supply chain platform we're building where it's almost like open collective. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess there might be cases where you want to keep certain information on certain particular types of aid or aid maybe that's being sent to sensitive countries more private. But ideally, groups working in public as much and making this data accessible to people who are, you know, outside of a refugee camp or a resettlement center, but want to send aid in to support it. If we can empower them with data and kind of highlight automatically what the needs are on base, things like that, and do it, working in the open, it just makes it so much easier for people to contribute and then for organizations to have that transparency and accountability baked in.
Amazing.
Um, yeah. So
And
I think,
I
oh,
sorry.
go for it. No, go for it.
I was going to say, like, looking at this sort of stuff makes me really think how the how the concept of open source goes so far beyond code, right? This enablement, this being able to build a platform that grassroots organizations can take part of and collaborate with is sort of like what we're trying to do here, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're heavily influenced by the open source software movement and,
Yeah.
work that in to create open kind of content. What's the license? The CC Creative Commons, right? So using
Yeah.
that to document different procedures or different information publicly and make that easily shareable and allow people to build off of it. And then, of course, in the supply chain, like applying these open source and open data concepts to the physical world, I think is both been a very powerful asset and also something that's very innovative that we've done. Um,
That's
yeah, and it gets
wonderful.
down, this is really, this is our weeks of supply. So we kind of look at the total, the
Oh,
predicted distribution rate versus the stock, and we can start to see what are we going to run out of. And you can see here, we have 1.3 million items on base. On average, we have a 19-week supply. That'll
yeah.
depend item by item. And it's always good to kind of look at the data, but then use a gut check and put it in context. I'll get to that more in a minute. But this shows us for planning demobilization. As guests continue to leave, we won't need as much, right?
Right.
And we'll ramp down, and the last guest will be resettled at some point, sooner rather than later here. So now we have this upcoming challenge. What do we do with the extra aid? And fortunately, there's very easy answers for that. We keep it as focused on the mission as possible. So we'll be we're already working to get certain items that we just have like a 52 week, we have 62 weeks of colored pencils, or I think for some of the diapers here,
Mm,
because babies grow so fast. If people give us an equal number of diapers, we're going to get a lot of extra size 1, 2, and 3 that babies outgrow, and then it's usually size
right.
4, 5, and 6. And we've seen this both in Europe, and now here directly at Fort Pickett. So we can start moving some of this aid off base now. It'll be offered to other bases that are part of the Operation Allies Welcome Response. Then it'll be offered through the um, kind of regional Virginia nonprofits and NGOs that are part of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, and Virginia organizations active in disasters. So that's kind of the state level set of organizations, and they'll use that to support resettled Afghans here in the region, working with the resettlement agencies. So even after people leave one of these resettlement centers and get into their new homes, we want to continue to support and supply them with what's available. Anything that's not useful in that context, we'll offer to local schools, churches, mosques, and other NGOs to help other people in the community that's worked so hard to support us. And finally, if there's something that just really can't be used here, we might ship it to other nonprofits nationally, or even support displaced people through Distribute Aid's international network.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is
One
really
last.
well really well thought out too. Sorry.
Oh no, thank you. It's this is what I've been building up towards for the past 3 weeks, so it's cool to have a chance to show it
Yeah.
off. So I love this one. This shows us our needs, and we use that weeks of supply based on the predicted distribution rate and our stock levels to say, hey, are we good? The idea with supply chains, you want to get ahead of the curve, right? We want to prevent emergencies from happening by ensuring that we have enough items. And so here you can see our 1, 2, 4. Really, we're targeting an 8 week supply at this point.
Mm,
That might drop down as guests leave and we get closer to the mission. But right now, we're for 1 week, we have 97% of those 376 items. We're good to go. So just kind of filling the gaps there as they arise day by day. And then even for 8 weeks, we're batting 88%. We have an 8 week supply of the items. So feeling very confident about our ability to continue to support our Afghan guests on base. And then obviously for where there's a clear access, we'll be getting those off to other bases, or through that demobilization plan. And then we can actually get counts. So if we wanted to make targeted requests, this is where I go in, and that's where that gut check comes into play, right? So sidewalk chalk, we've been regularly distributing it for engagements and activities. It's also getting to winter time, right? So we have a 4 week supply based on our current rate. I don't really feel the need to go ask for 168 sticks of sidewalk chalk, because people are going to start moving more towards indoor engagements,
yeah.
just because it's getting colder. Whereas coloring books, those are hugely popular. We use them for all sorts, whether it's helping distract kids at medical as they're getting shots or going for an appointment, in the departure kits that we give to children as they leave base on their way to their new home, or just for different activities, right? And so that's where I might go and say, hey, at this point, I don't need you to collect everything. Who wants to go get 500 coloring books? And that'll last us through, that'll get us to that 8 week supply point. For something like dry erasers, there's absolutely a need for more markers and dry erasers on base. I'm going to go buy, 100 dry erase markers and 20 dry erasers, and a couple of whiteboards today, and just knock that one out with the funding we've been able to raise, rather than wait for something to come in off the Amazon wish list, right?
Wonderful.
Yeah. So thanks for giving me some time here at the start of the stream. I just wanted to show everyone, we're not shooting from the hip here. It's we have really detailed supply chain intelligence. And this was a really great learning opportunity for us to build this domain model and get to apply it in practice. And that's what we do, whether it's on our logistics side with shipping, our in-kind donation side, sourcing aid from different people, or here we've been a lot closer to the distribution end. And, taking these concepts, applying them in a chaotic environment, coming out of that with a solid domain model that has been tested, and had those early kinks worked through. And then at that point, building the open source technology to empower anybody to do what we're doing anywhere in the world. That's how we build this code up. And that last piece is so important because we need to make sure that our humanitarian aid efforts are scalable beyond just distribute aid, right? We're not trying to be the next big aid organization, the next Doctors
Yeah.
Without Borders or Red Cross or something. We feel like we identify a lot more with, say, the WhatsApp team, a very small core of folks kind of handling the R&D, figuring things out, building scalable technology, and then opening that up to the world. So
Would it be fair to make a comparison between, say, a centralized and a decentralized environment?
exactly. And that's really where you see that transition. Those spreadsheets, that's centralized. That's something that we have to be present to run and maintain because they're fairly complicated. They're kind of too
Yeah,
complicated to just train anyone
automate.
up on outside our organization. And so I think that bridging that gap, taking those and implementing them through a web application really opens that up. It makes it a lot more democratic and a lot simpler so that anybody can start kind of following through on the web app and get guided so that they can use and understand this information. It's still a bit clunky at the spreadsheet stage.
Well, I mean, that's how it builds up, right? I want to
Exactly.
say, Taylor, like, please don't thank me for letting you do that. Like having you. I want to say thank you for sharing this because this kind of transparency, this kind of like showing of what goes on under the hood, is so important.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And
and
that's one
and
of the things we try to be careful because there are things that, would be inappropriate to talk about or share
of
in any
course,
of these responses. But as much as possible, we're always pushing for more transparency. And why do we do that? Well, one, it's important to hold ourselves accountable, right? We have
yeah.
public funds, public donations, and so just how people are supporting us, we want to show them that their stuff is actually making it to the guests. But two, it helps get people involved, right? If you show someone under the hood how things work, you build that trust and that relationship, and it just makes it easier for them to participate in these responses.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Taylor. This has been
Absolutely.
extraordinary. Um, well, on the topic of distribute aid, I would love, if I may, Taylor, catch you up on what's been going on
Yes,
with the website.
please. I heard you and Maxine did great things last week at the stream.
I have to say, most, if not all of the credit should go to Maxime. Before I show you, I just want to give folks another heads up. This is the this over here is the um, open collective page for distribute aid. Please, if you can, contribute code, contribute financially, however you can. Yeah, and the links down here at the bottom, and also in the chat. um yeah, let me show you what we've been up to, because we've been we spent some time last week working on the website, but Maxime also in his spare time has taken leaps and bounds
Awesome.
on the
Wow.
development, so I'd love to share with you how it looks at the moment. And to do that, I have to go
Whoa.
to where we are right now. So what you see here, Maxime and I worked on a little bit on this last week. Um,
Cool.
and what he's done is take an approach of getting most of the data out of the current website
Hmm.
and making it match the designs on Figma.
Awesome.
What
And
he and
that's
I
kind of
worked,
what we talked about a few weeks ago, right? Like, how do
yeah,
we been working on this for a while, and how do you balance getting code shipped and out the door with kind of introducing some of these new tools to support our admin and operations team through Oh gosh, what's the CMS that we use?
Contentful.
Contentful. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
This is great
So
to see.
no, he's been killing it. So we've got that, and so a couple of things that were worked on were the About Us page. Oh,
Okay.
yes. And he and I had a really interesting conversation about that because, sorry, the routes page. Do you remember that we renamed these to be shipping routes?
Yep.
So Maxime changed that back.
Okay.
And and we had an interesting conversation about this last week. The reason he changed it back is because we want to preserve the URL for
Ah,
SEO so as to not lose that on Google.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So what he and I worked on was the About Us page, which is what you see here.
Okay. That's a
YouTube
really
video.
interesting thing with the routes though. So that kind of, we did that for developer clarity, right? And trying to
Yeah,
make it easier to work with the code base. And I think you made the correct decision here, absolutely. But
yeah,
the SEO, making sure we're not breaking links when we roll this out, which maybe could
exactly.
have been handled through a redirect or something, but I think this is a lot simpler and cleaner. And those are exactly the sorts of trade offs you have to make when you aren't doing greenfield development, where you're either kind of upgrading an existing
Mm,
site or adding on to one. You have to think through how will that impact what's already there and make these trade-offs between kind of making improvements for things going forwards versus providing continued support. Yeah.
exactly. No,
Cool.
I agree, and that's very well said. So we've got the About Us page, board members, mission. Maxime made this timeline
Whoa, that's
between
awesome.
last week and this week. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. I don't want to. Um, it is responsive.
What?
Here, check it out.
Oh, that's amazing. I
Not bad,
love it.
huh? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I
I'm,
want to
I'm
give.
really curious how that works. Is it using Flexbox and different media queries or?
Yeah, let's. I think. I guess we'll be able to see that here. It looks like we've got some custom CSS.
Okay, interesting. So
Uh,
some
uh,
relative positioning here.
yeah. We could take a look at that in the code as well.
Cool.
But for the time being, yeah. So we've got that. And I think the last. No, I think that's what you missed from last time. Donate page looks the same. And what I did leading up to today was take a look at this compared with our Figma and see how much left there is.
Yeah,
Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, we're getting pretty close to being ready for a release.
it looks like we are. It would be awesome to get something out the door here before the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love it.
So I think here what we're missing. So if I were to compare the landing page, how do no, I don't know. I don't think I can have two pages side by side here. But if I go back to our main page, right, we've got this here,
Hmm.
which here looks like like a slideshow.
The number of different photos. Yeah, yeah.
So that's one thing. We've got this with the social icons here, which I think is that's the old
Oh,
website,
that's the old one.
which is missing here.
So add some social icons.
Do you know what I'm going to do as well, Taylor? While we're doing this, shall we add some issues?
Sorry, the internet hiccups right there. What were you
My
saying?
bad. Do you think we should take these things that we're missing that we're noticing are missing now, turn those into issues?
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. That'll kind of give us, countdown list here that we can work towards.
Yeah.
Um, cool.
Oh, there's this one. Uh,
The
f-
carousel. Yep.
yeah. Create
I
image.
think that Matthew is working on that. So there might be some existing code or a library that he pulled in, which we might just have to hook up.
Yeah. Maybe what we want to do is create a separate issue that refers to this one.
Yeah, that would be a good
Integrate.
thing of like, apply it to this particular page.
33. It was not. That's me and my bad memory. It was 32. And I will add the Figma link. So that's one issue. Oh, I forgot to tag it, to label it. How silly of me. Let's say, well, folks, I'm always going to invite everybody if they want to hop in. Let's say it's not a duplicate, not a bug.
It's kind of an enhancement, right?
Yeah,
We're trying to, add something new to that page.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So that's one issue. The other one was the social icons in the banner. Add social icons to banner on main page. I'll put the Figma design for reference. And we've got, do we need anything here? I don't think we need to add any more context
Should
here, am I?
we do a starting point code C? So these are both on the home pages. And so I think just a quick refresh for that landing page, so that people have that starting point, and that'll help them see what's currently going on. Yeah.
That's an excellent point. So, are you logged in? It would appear I am logged in. Did a hard refresh just in case. What's going on here? I'll admit it's been a while since I've logged in. 404. You are not logged into Code C. Recordings will fail. I will log out and log back in. Sorry about that. Let's see now. There we go.
Right.
Phew. I was kind of afraid that recordings weren't working. So let's make a recording real quick.
That's good. I get to save my one feature request for later on in the stream.
Cool. So we've got that recording. Let's rename it.
Yeah, it's really just like the landing page starting point for a few different issues.
Yep. Sounds good. Let's make that public. Copy the link. So we'll put that one here. Is that okay? Is it? Oh, no. No. We want enhancement. Would you say this is a good first issue?
For the social icons? Yeah. I think because those are available design-wise, we should be able to pull SVGs from that Figma link, right?
Exactly.
And then it's just about adding those images and getting them kind of lined up, maybe checking some mobile responsive stuff. So I think, good first issue, it really depends on who the contributor is to me, right? That's something that, I think you, me, Maxime, lots of other folks would be very comfortable doing. But people have different preferences and different experiences. So
well said.
Yeah. And then it's kind of like look at the good first issues and find the one that's right for you, I would say. But this doesn't really have any I guess what I would say is not a good first issue is anything with some complicated dependencies, like maybe that carousel one. That seems a bit tricky because there's the general carousel and then there's the application of the carousel. There might be some hookups to Contentful to make those images dynamic. That's where someone might want a bit more familiarity with our tech stack versus this. It's fairly independent and straightforward.
I agree. I would say that makes sense. So I'd say this one is a good first issue, but the other one isn't. I will need to go to that previous issue and add that code C. Nope, added this. Code C recording. Perfect. Right. So let's carry on. Let me get that Figma. So I believe below that we've got the ship your age section,
Hmm.
which
And so
looks
that's very much based on our previous site. I think with this one, we had we wanted to change it up so that left to right with a bit of a carousel.
mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like this is probably okay to launch as is. If we, maybe we should make an issue for it.
Yeah,
But the existing design is fairly clean, and the links work and everything. So that's one of those ones where that could be.
a nice
Um,
to have.
yeah, and we might want to set up a milestone or something here, right? Like what needs to happen before launch, and then
Got it.
what is something that might be, that next priority for an iteration or could happen before launch, but doesn't necessarily need to hold up the launch.
I've never used GitHub launches. Should we call this 1.0 launch? No,
Yeah,
first launch. Okay. 1.0. This is fine.
yeah, that's great.
Got it. Look at that. Fancy. So we'll need that. I'd say the favicon is also going to be a good one to
Yeah.
have in the 1.0 launch.
Hmm.
Then we've got the social icons, which I agree can totally go in that 1.0 launch. However, that ship your aid, is it ship your aid?
Yeah, ship your
Ship your
aid.
aid. Yeah.
So just kind of telling folks where we regularly send shipments to, so they get a sense of like what they should reach out to us about.
So this will be, do we need a new milestone?
Not necessarily. I think we can
Okay.
just leave it as it doesn't have a milestone,
Got
and
it.
just keep that 1.0 launch like strict kind of hard requirements for launch.
Got
And
it.
then after that's done, that would be a good point because I think sometimes as developers we want to find like the right bucket for something,
Yeah.
but then things change, right? Priorities
Sure.
change, timeline changes, and so I'd much rather just say, hey, we got the launch out the door, now let's plan the next milestone and see what we want to include in there at that point rather than trying to predict it right now.
Makes sense to me. So this next one, right. So we'll need the Figma design. How do I? There we go. Figma design. And we need our code C recording. And for consistency's sake, there we go. Labels.
We double check those Figma designs are available to folks who don't necessarily have access to our Figma.
Oh,
I
good
want to,
point.
yeah, just open it up in a new tab or something like that, like an incognito tab.
I'll do that right away.
Yeah, I think I asked our design team to make sure it was like publicly viewable, but just want to double check since we're putting it out there on issues.
Taylor, you are absolutely right. That is, I'm getting a file not found. Either this
Okay.
file doesn't exist or you don't have permission, which is fine because what we can do instead is have screenshots.
Yeah, that would work for now. I think if we do screenshots, and then there's really no issue with sharing this page. So it's just a matter of who has access to that account. I think because Figma doesn't necessarily offer, we ask them and they don't offer kind of free NGO accounts. So we're limited by the number of seats on who can be
Mm.
an editor for Figma, and so that is the design team. So I can't even go in there. Usually, I'm used to pressing that admin button to like, do I want? It's not
Yeah,
the case. Yeah.
good to know. Um, yeah, so let's see how that. Oh, forgot to add labels. I'll do that now. I'm very sorry, Taylor. That's the door my wife is
That's
now.
okay.
I'll be
Go for it.
right back. Yeah, I'll be
Do,
right, right,
do you
right back.
want me to just share my screen and I can drive for a bit here?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. Cool.
Perfect. I'll be right back.
Totally. Um, hey, everybody. So I'm just going to open up Figma and pick up where Ramon left off. And so I think what we'll do here, let's wrap this one up. So labels, I'm going to say that this is an enhancement. I think this is a fairly good first issue. The content is there, and that could be really fun for someone to play around with a little carousel over there. We could always use help if you want to become a contributor to Distribute Aid. And then I'm just going to maybe say that it could also depend on the image carousel, so related to 32.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe I'll say, hey, we could just start off with some static images, like a single static image or, a series or something. But just want to note that it is supposed to be here, eventually, since this is not one of those hard things for once. Here we go. So there's that one. And I'll tell you what, Ramon, oh, yeah, I'm not even logged into Figma right now. So
Yeah, let's do it with screenshots.
yeah. Okay, and it might be worth it still while we're going through dropping that Figma link here so that we can
Oh yeah, good
make
call.
it available. That way, as soon as we sort out the permissions issues, it's good to go.
Let me drop that link in there then.
Cool. And maybe I'll send you, we'll go back to sharing your screen just because I'm not logged into Figma at the moment.
Okay.
How's everyone in the chat doing?
Oh, sorry. Didn't realize you had passed it over to me. So let's get back in here. Now, we've got this issue done, I would say. I'm going to go back to the others where we shared Figma links and add screenshots. Oh, don't know why I opened that if we already had it.
That's okay. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes, starting from what's available at an issue, right? And kind of taking the pathway that any contributor would take.
That's a fair point.
Let's
Yeah.
double check some stuff.
Design. Screenshot of Figma design showing social icons. And I think that should do it. That'll show this for folks coming in, which is super handy.
Yeah. Now, one thing there is if you can't access the Figma link, they're not necessarily going to be able to get the SVGs for those social icons. So what I'd recommend is that's okay. Maybe let's continue creating issues, but then when we get to the coding portion of this, we can start by just downloading the SVGs ourselves and making them available. And that way people are totally ready to go on this one.
An excellent point. So where were we? We had this, the ship your aid section. How we help. Here's how
did we do a screenshot for the top with the with the carousel there?
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe just I'll provide some running commentary while Ramon's doing the last screenshot here. But that's a good way. When you think about like how do I break up a commit, right? What's too big, what's too small. In this case, it's kind of like what's necessary for someone else, which could be us, and we could continue with that social icon implementation, but kind of what's necessary if someone else wanted to pick it up, right? And so in this case, just adding those SVGs and making that a single small commit to handle that bit enables more possibility where anyone could then go in and finish that issue up. And so that's maybe a good way to think about dividing up your commits in these sort of collaborative open source environments. What's the pay it forward kind of commit point?
Yeah, that's really true, and I really appreciate how you make that comparison. Okay, so let's look at the how we help section. We've got these snippets on refugee aid and the COVID-19 response.
Mm-hmm.
If I look here, we've got grassroots aid, COVID-19 response, and what's missing is the in-kind donations section.
Yeah, and I would almost add our Fort Pickett project here, which started after these designs came out. And so that's a great example where that might be a priority to make, listing out those different sort of how we help responses more flexible and integrate them with Contentful, where other bits are more static. If we're already seeing at this point that new projects pop up, new responses pop up, I would say that's probably not a requirement for launch. Again, want to keep that super narrow. So maybe just adding the in-kind donations and the Fort Pickett response statically is a good first step there. But, as one of those, what do we hook up to Contentful as soon as this is out the door? That might be an immediate next step.
So we've got screenshot. We need the code C recording. Sorry, I'm going all over the place here.
That's all good. I mean, that's a lot of tech work, right? It's kind of hectic. You have a lot of different tools you have to pull bits of information from and put it in the right spot.
Yeah, it's a lot to go through.
It kind of reminds me of a warehouse. Like I'm running around to different shelves and putting together a box for women's tea time or something like that.
Yeah. So code C recording, Figma link. No. Figma link. And that's it. We're good to go. Awesome. We need to make this part of our... No, you said not part of them.
For the content here, yes. For hooking it up to Contentful, that can be an iteration after launch.
Gotcha.
I was just kind of highlighting like how do we prioritize what sections to make dynamic, and it's kind of what sections do we need?
Yeah, the plan for at the time being that Maxime proposed, and I'm is to just make everything static for now, and then like in arrears add stuff to location to Contentful.
Totally.
Good first issue, I think. I hope you'll agree.
I would say half and half, right? So the text content is there on Figma, but we don't necessarily have images for the in-kind donations or the Fort Pickett. Now we can provide those fairly easily, but I don't think that anyone outside of the distribute aid team would really be able to say what image should be there. So that might be, let's leave it off a good first issue. Yes, help wanted. But then as soon as those images get added, just like the SVGs for the social icons, then we can mark it as a good first issue and show people, which ones to pull from.
Good point. I would even say, let's go ahead and copy that over. What do you say?
Yep. Yeah, some of the text there.
Content. See how that'll look. Oh, you can even copy it. Fantastic.
Nice. And then I'll have to come up with the text content for the Fort Pickett project. And so that might be a good one just to leave us some reminders that like if we could do the little checkbox thing, like what else do we need to do to set this up? We need to create text
Okay.
content for the Fort Pickett project, which I can do.
So okay, if I
Um,
tag you here?
totally, go for it. And then add images, which I might not choose the images myself, but I'll take responsibility for getting them up there.
Thank you. So add images and text copy for Fort Pickett. I'm spelling that correctly, right? Pickett has 2 T's.
Yep, Pickett has 2 T's.
Text copy for Fort Pickett section. Perfect. Beautiful. I like how this is looking.
Awesome.
Oh, look at that. You can turn this into an issue.
Oh, that's cool.
Sorry,
That's
where was
actually
I?
really helpful because like sometimes we put up like reach milestones under those checkboxes, and so it's like
Yeah,
if you know want to get the PR in and don't necessarily hit those kind of reach checkboxes, then that's a really easy way to still make forward progress. Like, hey, I did the core stuff for this issue. I want to get that merged in, and then let me turn the reach goals into the next issue that someone can work on.
exactly. Cool. So there's that. Let's head back here. Scroll down a little bit. We've got our 2020 and numbers section, which
Mhm.
is pretty much the same as the design.
Yeah. Nice.
Don't know why this didn't work. That's odd. Ah, that would explain it. Yes. Sorry, the Git pod timed out.
I was wondering, it wouldn't let me connect to it, but since I'm navigating here, I wasn't too worried.
Yeah, it probably just timed out as I left it idle for too
Yeah.
long. But it should be okay now. Now it's pulling all the data. And soon we'll be able to take a look at it again. But okay, I think for the landing page, sorry, for the main page of the landing page, we're good to go issue-wise.
Yep. Yeah, I think just that footer at the bottom, I'm wondering if there was a footer designed. I know we want to be promoting kind of other channels, I think, at this point than Patreon. So like our open collective. So maybe just changing that if there's not a footer designed, maybe instead of that Patreon link highlighted at the footer, we could make that a donate link, which will take people to our donation page and they can see all of our different options. Yeah.
Do you think it makes sense to make that an issue?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
something that we'll want to change up before launch. Now that we're working on I guess, 3 different continents we're shipping to, but our main team is in Europe, and then I'm over here in the US, and we have a US DA USA is fiscally sponsored by Open Collective. We just want people to
Right.
be able to slot themselves in the right donation channel where they're at in the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, make the button match that in the navigation. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks great.
So this will be enhancement. I think it's a good first issue.
Totally.
Help is always wanted, and it's towards our milestone.
Nice.
Perfect. I think let's have another look. Yeah, so we'll turn that into a donation link. These match.
Yeah.
So what about the About Us page? If we look at the About Us page, we do have an Our Projects link that's missing here. Would that include? Yeah.
So I think that we'll probably need to spend some more time on the Our Projects page to get the content together. We want to get to a point where there's kind of like a one-page PDF sort of style, you know, for each project, and that you could go to the homepage and click on some of those responses and see those projects. But I think for
Yeah.
now, since we don't necessarily have that on the existing site, that's something that we could defer to until after launch. And it's like, then at that point, the new site's out the door, and we can choose, do we want to add a new section to this site, or do we want to upgrade parts of the existing content and hook them up to Contentful to make them dynamic?
Yes. Makes sense. Makes sense. So we'll probably leave that for after launch.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. So for the About Us page, like, I think our achievement section is... No, wait, this is an older design. Sorry. Which one is our About Us page? Here we go.
Nice.
So about our mission is there.
Yeah, that looks really good.
Timeline is there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. This is done.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a few things. Can we just scroll to the top real quick?
Sure.
I think I guess the video dimensions, it might be nice if that video is a little bit larger. I don't necessarily want to push content down the page. It just looks wider there. It kind of fills up the space a bit more. But that's probably limited by what the video dimensions are, right? We wouldn't want to necessarily make it wider.
I remember hacking on this with Maxime last week. Let me give that a try. Yeah, see, the maximum width is 800 pixels.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose we can make that bigger. Say,
I don't know, what's our next up media breakpoint? Is that like 11 something, 1024?
I don't know, actually. That would depend on Tailwind.
Right.
Breakpoints. So there we go.
1024. Yeah. Okay. But
So
that also looks like the video quality there, that image isn't necessarily super sharp, which is fine because it's kind of a screen grab from the video itself.
Yeah. So if I do it like this, what I've done here is I've just bumped it to 1024.
Okay.
If I were to mess around with that.
That'll shrink and be mobile responsive there. That's cool.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Cool. Shall we make this change real quick?
Yeah, let's go and get our hands dirty, do some coding.
Sounds good. So that was, oh yeah, I know where that is. That's in the About Us page. So I hope the size is okay. Everybody, if the size looks too small, please do give us a shout. If not, I'll jump right into the About Us page. It'll be in the About Hero component. And here on line 4, we can see a hard-coded max width of 800. Now, we could do this with a style. However, I believe if I go back to Tailwind and I do some max width here, I don't know if we're going to be able to.
Yeah, maybe.
There we go. Max WXL. No?
And then what's the right actual width here? So it looks like towards the bottom, they have some of those breakpoints built in.
Ah, yes. Thank you.
Max width, screen large is the one we want.
Exactly. So we can just remove this. So if we do that and refresh our About Us page, remove that, it should look exactly the same.
Yeah, that looks great.
Fantastic. Shall we make a very quick pull request for this?
Yeah, I guess we could do two things. We could kind of have like a cleanup sort of PR and do a number of slightly, not super related things. So like a number of small commits, or we could do a quick PR for this one and then the next one. Which way do you prefer? I guess I don't.
I think I think what you suggest about having some small fixes, like some minor cleanups, would be pretty good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That works for me. Yeah,
So,
maybe we can include like adding some of those social icons. And just get them into the
yes.
right folder. It'd be another small commit to make here.
So, feature, expand, YouTube, embed width. So that's one commit.
Nice.
Next is the social icons, which we can bring in from here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got a series of social media icons, which we can export to SVG.
Awesome.
I hope I'm doing this right. Yeah, that looks
Yeah,
good.
that looks good.
So I'll just export all of these. Instagram, SVG, Twitter, SVG, LinkedIn, SVG. So those are now at the bottom here of my window. If I go back to GitPod, I should be able to integrate these SVGs. If I go into,
Mm.
I believe it's under images. And I would say, let's create a new folder called social icons. What do you
Yeah,
think?
so here's the question. Should we
Sure.
start off kind of like a social icons component, right? And put the
Uh-huh.
images in that component directly as kind of like, here's the series of 4, and then we can, expand that maybe eventually at the bottom and that footer. We could use that, but have a setting where it's horizontal instead of vertical or something. Or should we just include the social icons generally? Hey, here are images that different components can use, right? What's the right level to put these in?
I guess the question would be, do these get reused anywhere other than here?
Right. And so I think right now on the current design, they don't, but I could certainly see them being reused in the future. For example, under projects, we might want to have like, we can pull in updates from Facebook and just log the title of the post and then have the Facebook
Mm-hmm.
icon there. And when you click to it, it goes to that post content. So I think that, since they exist, we should make it flexible to use them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay.
Especially, I mean, they're already kind of being reused across these two banners.
Yeah. Yeah, and now
So,
they should behave the same there in those banners, right? So that's
yeah.
where we might want to have a single component that gets added to each banner. But the icons themselves, it seems fine to make them more flexible.
Yeah. So in that case, let's create, shall I go ahead with the folder then?
Yep, totally.
Let's call this social icons.
Thanks for talking through that, though. It's always, I'm still, I haven't done tons and tons in React, so kind of just thinking through some of the
Yeah,
architecture implications is helpful.
absolutely. I'm a big proponent of doing stuff like by thinking out loud. So I'm just gonna rename this one to Facebook. Now, just gonna drag these into, oh no, social icons. So there we go. That's all 4 of
Nice.
them.
Cool. And should
And
we naming convention? I guess it's capitalized of the service. That makes sense to me. I don't think we need to mess with the names there necessarily.
yeah.
I see a couple of different. There's like the dash. There's underscore on some of them, so that might be a
Mhm.
cleanup thing at some point since we're
Yeah,
pulling in some of that from the other one. Hey, should we standardize how we name our images? But it doesn't
I'm
seem
with
like
you.
a big issue right now.
No, I hear you. Um, One thing I am noticing is that every image here is lowercase.
Yeah. Yeah. In general, I guess I like to do lowercase file names. I guess my favorite is lowercase with dashes instead
Mhm,
of
same.
spaces. Kind of like that URL, style.
I couldn't agree more. So linked, and here we do dash. Whoopsie. What is happening?
Ruh-roh.
Oh, we said dash.
Sweet.
LinkedIn and Twitter. There we go. I think before we commit those, we can go ahead and create our component, right?
Yeah, we could totally create a component folder here. And
Look at that.
oh, there we
It
go.
already exists.
Okay.
Interestingly, it looks like this is an empty component. So how
Yeah.
about we go ahead and import the icons into here
Yeah,
and sort of
that
leave that
sounds
as a
good.
to-do?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might want to create even like a little, skeleton for it. I don't know if we can copy and paste something easy from
I'm
like that
sure we can.
icons component folder or something.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Cog icon. Yeah. Let's one of these. Where did Maxime and I worked on some SVGs last week? Sorry, do you
Yeah.
mind if I just quickly
Go for it.
just jog my memory for the code? Import from images. Awesome.
It's probably gonna be like dot dot slash something.
Yeah. Maybe if I do a dot star here. Hey.
There you go.
Yeah, this is what I had in mind. Ah, this is what we did. The logo mark. Yeah.
Nice.
So we can use that and then we can use an SVG in an image tag, which is what I have in mind here.
Right. Yeah. Using that, so you import it, and then you have the source set to that import. That makes a lot of sense.
So I'm just gonna copy that over here, and as you correctly proposed, let's just put all of those in. So this is 2 out. So it was images, social icons, and as Maxime correctly taught me last week, VS Code does not autocomplete images.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So for
Okay.
example, Facebook.svg. And we'll just call this Facebook src. And then we'll just take this line, whoopsie, copy it 4 times, once for each. So Twitter, linked in src from linked dash in. And the last one was Instagram. Instagram. Then I would say, let's just take this a little bit. You know what FC is? What is FC? Function component. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that seems kind of like a wrapper rather than having to specify all the function stuff if it's a fairly straightforward thing.
Mm-hmm. This, bring that to the top. Sorry to be doing this so quickly, just cleaning up a little bit. There we go. So instead of mission statement, we will call this, what is it called? Social icon container. Social icon container. And we will leave this empty. It won't even be a section. It'll be I would say it would be a div.
Yeah, we could just make it a div for now, like social icons go here. I think that's what we were doing last time.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. Let's make sure that nothing crashed.
Yep. Looks good.
One second. So that's not crashing. That's excellent. We can go ahead and commit that. SRC. So what have we done here? We've added the SVGs and we've modified the component. Feature, add, icon SVGs, integrate. No. Add.
Maybe set up like skeleton component or something.
Yep. Skeleton for icon component.
You can tell Ramon and I never really stopped with Hacktoberfest. We still got those spooky vibes.
Yeah. So let's push all that origin feature cleanups just for now. We don't have to create a pull request right away unless
Yeah.
done. Continue to GitHub. What else did we feel was quick that we could add
Right on. So we'll
or
need the
tweak?
social icons here. We might want to just adjust that issue and say, could you add this both on the home page and on the About Us page to the banner?
Let's do that.
It's kind of the same thing, linking into the same sort of component on both pages. So I think it's right there.
So this is no longer accurate because it needs to be main page and
the About Us page.
About yes, About Us page.
Yep, that's all.
And I'm going to expand on this just a little bit just to clarify.
Totally.
Social icon. No, what's the name of the component? Social icon container.
Yeah.
In fact, I take it a tiny bit further and even say, let's link to that file directly.
PR? Yeah, so I think if we make that pull request and then we could link to the PR, link to the file there.
Do we want to merge it first? Do you think we can merge it today?
Yeah, I would say for that cleanup, so we should just merge it at the end of the session here. We got like another half hour?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I would say
15
all
minute
good.
warning.
All good. I'm free for time, Taylor. So like if we go a little bit over, like no stress from my end. But we've got the file here already. I would recommend.
I think if we link straight to the file on the the head or whatever, then once we merge it in, it should point to the new one, right? Since we're not necessarily referencing a commit, it's just the latest on that Saga branch. Would that work?
I think so. Yeah, it'll be updated because it's linking to Saga. Yes, you can see if you look at the URL, it'll say Blob Saga. So we're good.
Awesome.
So I would say, yeah, let's. How do I add a link here? What am I saying? This is Markdown. I'm doing too much Google Docs kind of things, and I don't know. Like I'm not used to Markdown anymore. Social icon container should has the icons. I'm good?
Yep, sounds great.
This will be temporarily inaccurate until we create and merge a PR.
we're computer scientists. Eventual consistency, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Let's see where were we? We were looking here at the social icons. We were on the distribute home page. Right. What else were we missing, or what else did we notice that we could quickly fix?
I mean, I think it looks pretty good. We might want to add a little bit to our history. I know the designs are slightly different. I think, but that's something that is not necessarily a hold up for launch. That's just how do we continue to expand on this, right? Adding, Fort Pickett as an event in the org's history. And then certainly want to expand on the team section. So right now it's highlighting Sarah and our board members, Stephanie and Radina.
Oh, here, yes.
Obviously, we want to, eventually be able to showcase everyone that's participated in Distribute Aid. In terms of launch, I think that this is fine. There's probably going to be around a small cleanups or something at some point right before launch. And so any small style things can be worked out then. But why wait to get what's already been set up and people have put a lot of effort into it? Let's get that out the door and then iterate.
Awesome. Cool. Then I would say we should go ahead and create a PR for this.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
I've got something new from Code C that I'd love to show you, Taylor.
Oh, yeah, sounds good.
Maxime showed it off last week, but we can. Well, let's one thing at a time. So let's, so this is pushed. Let's go ahead and create a PR for this. And of course, that means first making a recording. So let's do that first. The changes we made were to...
So the only bit that would be available in the recording is the resizing on the About Us page,
yes.
the distribute aid video there. Yeah.
So we're refreshing that. Now that that's stopped, we will DA landing, resized, YouTube video. That's shareable.
To start calling code things like resize, but make it like Dungeons and Dragons-esque. So instead of resize, it's like enlargened or something. You know, what are the spells we're casting? To like
love it. Yeah. Shrink and no, shrink and enlargen. Love it. So yes, cleanups. How about minor? Oh, let's be accurate. Resize YouTube video on About Us page. Integrate social icon SVGs.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all done. We then need right, code C recording. I think that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think we need too much here. Maybe labels or something like that. I don't know.
Labels? Ah, yes, labels, of course. Enhancement.
Yeah.
Let's create that pull request, and then I'm going to switch screens, and I hope this works. I am very excited to show you, to showcase to you, like we already showcased it to our viewers last week, but you haven't seen this, Taylor, so this is more for you. We're new, so we just stop share screen. I
feel like I'm getting an early Christmas present from Code C.
Well, let's see. So here's the distributed code base on VS Code.
Nice.
Now, if you take a look at the left side of the window, you'll notice a couple of extensions we have there, including, let's see, we've got the file, we got this, we got GitHub, and there's a new one here called Code C.
Nice.
And what this is our VS Code plugin.
Okay.
So what we've brought here is the ability to, sorry, step back. I'm doing a terrible job at this. GitHub provides some really extensive tools to be able to create pull request reviews on VS Code. So we've expanded that to complement that with PR reviews, map reviews. So I'm going to show you how that works. And a lot of this is going to seem familiar, only it's even more integrated with GitHub's extensions.
Cool.
Now, I don't know why. What I'm doing here is refreshing the pull request. I should be logged in to GitHub because I'm pretty sure I was using this yesterday. Sorry. Maybe this is already working. Let's have a look. No, my bad. I kind of jumped the gun there. Like normally the pull request from GitHub should show up here. But I don't know why. I'm just going to try and...
It's not the right origin for the repository, but...
Yeah, let me take a look. Remote. I usually get the SSH version. I'm just going to restart VS Code. Sorry, 1 second. I'm super excited to show you this. So hopefully it works this time. And if not, I'll show it to you live. Oh, here we go. Okay. Share screen. Window. Yes, code. Yes. Okay. Right. So you see here in the GitHub plugin, which most people, my VS Code crashed. I'm sorry. Thank you for bearing with me.
Oh, it's all good. I'm just sitting here, a little bit smug as a Sublime text user.
Very well put. I'm fair point. I think VS Code got updated.
Yeah, Microsoft products, they just give you like a massive update randomly. It locks you up or whatever.
Here we go. Okay.
Nice. Okay. Oh,
So
that's awesome.
here's my pull request. This is from GitHub, right? What you see so far is going to be familiar to folks using GitHub. They can look at diffs and all that. What
Mhm.
we've added here is both the ability to do this from the extension here or from the command palette. Code
Okay.
C, open review map,
Nice.
and that'll bring you right
So you're
into
just
Code
looking
C.
at the PR in the GitHub extension, and then you're like, I want to go check out the Code C map, and you can just get it going right away.
Exactly.
I love
So
it.
here's our PR map, which
Yeah.
our review map, which you're familiar with already. And here's what I'm excited about. What I like about this is that instead of having our own version of doing reviews, for example, you remember how in review maps you can double click to bring up a diff, right?
Yeah.
What our engineers did, Maxime included, what they did was think, hey, why remake something if we can just reuse? So it actually plugs into GitHub's extension. So if you
Oh,
double
cool.
click here, it'll take you here, and then you can do all
It'll
your
pull up. Yeah.
review
Nice.
stuff using GitHub. So this is all GitHub.
Hmm. Well, and I
But
know that
yeah,
like even on the web version, it's definitely helpful that you pull that stuff in through Code C, I think, but that's
yeah,
being powered by that GitHub Reviews API. And so here, different kind of application, right? It's just like how mobile and web are different. Well, these integrations are different too. And that makes a lot of sense because it's all, through the VS Code, sort of app sandbox, right? So if you can
totally.
open it up straight on the GitHub one, that's great. So I love this. I have a few requests that I've been saving for the end.
Yes.
So one,
What should I
oh,
open up? Sorry,
what do you?
didn't. Should I have something opened up for reference?
Oh no, I'm just chit chatting.
Okay,
Um,
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
please.
Um, so I haven't used VS Code. I've been on Sublime Text with like a terminal and a web browser, but I've seen a lot of folks on our team use it, and it definitely seems like a great IDE. So maybe one of our sessions early next year could be helping Taylor get set up on VS Code, and we could do some
Totally.
fun things and like show off some of the Code C features. It's one of those things where like I could take a few hours to probably sit down and figure it out by myself. But also, there are a lot of things that demand a few hours of my time. I don't always have that. And so, walking through with one of my friends like you or Maxine to do it would be awesome. And then the
Yeah.
second kind of related thing here, if there's a project on OSS port, right? It's an open source project and someone's working on it on VS Code through this integration. Is that something that y'all could highlight, right? Like, here's the link back. You got that Code C plugin now on VS Code so that anyone who's, contributing to Distribute Aid can link out to that OSS port profile or see their accomplishments or contributions. It's kind of a little bit less specific but longer term. But I think that would be really awesome to make sure that developers who are contributing to these projects on that site that y'all made, get that extra oomph like when they're right there in their editor, right? Tying their work back to the impact it's making, tying it back to that more public project profile, things like that.
I am so happy that you mentioned this, Taylor, because this is exactly what we're working on. So one of the projects we've got going on with Coatsy and sort of like one thing that we're working on hard for Q1 is a sort of like we've done I'm really proud of the work that we've done on OSS port. For especially for maintainers. But now it's time, as you correctly said, to bring it back to contributors. So we're actually working. I don't have a name for it yet. I can't preview anything yet. Not because I'm under like secrecy or anything. It's just because it's still like, what's the term when it doesn't exist yet? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's still gestating or something like that, right?
Exactly. It's abstract, but we're working on a contributor dashboard, and dashboard isn't my favorite term for it, but it's like a social place where folks can show what they're working on in open
Yeah.
source,
And you know what I
powered by.
love? Like having that and having the code side connected through there through these great integrations that CodeC's made, but then on the maintainer side, kind of on the admin end, if we could kind of log highlights from the very physical real world impact as shipments get off, as aid moves through the supply
Mm.
chain, and then people can kind of that OSS port site, really becomes the portal to connect developers and their accomplishments on the code side with what else is going on at the organization, right? And becomes that bridge in virtual, physical space.
I gotta write this down. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Um, distribute aid.
I mean, contributing to an open source project is awesome and very noteworthy by itself, but especially for our contributions, we want to say, hey, not only did you, help these aid groups get online and build tools they can use on this platform, but that led to hundreds of thousands of people getting clothing, getting soap, getting baby food, right? That's really, we try to make sure everyone understands dealing with supply chains, their work on one end on collecting, on coding or whatever, it takes a while to play out, right? But things move through the real world and eventually do get to people in need, and closing that loop back around, is really important, I think.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm calling it maintainer highlights. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I think something, yeah, exactly. So it's like maintainer highlights, and then, folks who are kind of actively contributing during the same period, like let's make sure they know what's going on, right? Or if there's
Love it.
specific, features in the code base, I don't really know, but using code C maps, right? We might be able to link highlights to specific like components people have developed, things like that.
I
So
like this because this kind of goes beyond a change log.
yeah,
It's
it's
because
an
I'm thinking that
impact
folks.
log, right? That's what it is. It's like the impact log of
Ah,
like we did X and that was possible, because of these parts of the code base. And then that kind of links into the Git history and everyone who's contributed to that from years ago or from yesterday can see their continued impact.
this is fantastic. Thank you, Taylor. I love this because it's showing that it goes beyond. Like one of the things that I've really been interested in with Port is to show this how we can impact open source beyond code,
No,
right? By making things like non-code contributions, but at the same time highlighting how projects go beyond code. That's fascinating.
no. I got to
Thank you.
connect you to our fiscal sponsors at the Open Collective Foundation, because they also have there's like an open source fiscal sponsorship that's being run through their platform, and I think
Yeah.
that would be really powerful. I mean, they focus a lot on like the physical aid side, but they have tech projects under their wing. There's this other, funding for open source projects through them, and I'm starting to see a real bridge that CodeC is able to provide, linking those code bits to these very real world projects. And we kind of do that on the logistics side, virtual, physical. They do that on the financial side. And we're all taking this highly open source, highly transparent, kind of distributed, scalable sort of model and applying it to different aspects of helping people in the world.
It's amazing. Thank you, Taylor. I think
Thank you,
that's
Ramon.
yeah. I think that's a good place to wind down. As said, folks, we'll be taking a break. We'll be back after the new year. I'll be coming back on the first week of January. Taylor, maybe we can get in touch and maybe coordinate over a comeback. However, I hope you're getting some rest over
Yeah.
the end of the year. Fantastic. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
To everybody watching, I hope you're getting some rest too. It's very important to get some rest. And thanks for everything, Taylor. It's been absolutely
Absolutely.
wonderful. And
Wonderful year. Been loving these streams. And to our
same.
audience, see you in 2022.
Yeah. Take care, everybody, and have a good one. Bye now.
Bye.